Hello, it's Laura Davalo here with another interactive card tutorial for the MFT YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to create a square Christmas card with a fun surprise. When you spin the acetate wheel, little presents magically start appearing from the snowman's bag and disappearing behind the hill. It's just another version of the simple and versatile Volvel mechanism. To speed things along, I've already die-cut an acetate wheel using the Peekaboo wheel dynamics. It measures 3 7/8 of an inch in diameter. We will also need two 4.5-inch square panels and a 9 by 4.5-inch card base. I used Berrylicious cardstock for them. You could manage with only one panel, but then you would have to punch a hole in your card base for the brad. To hide the edge of our wheel, we will cut a round window in the main panel. It should be slightly smaller than the rotating wheel. This one measures 3 inches and is from the A2 circle STAX Die-namics. Okay, so let's grab a T-ruler and a pencil to mark the center of the upper edge of our back panel. We also need to center it horizontally and punch a hole in the middle for the brad. As always, use what you have for this. A 1/16 of an inch long reach hole punch, a piercing tool, or even a thick needle will do. I thought I'd save some time and use a 1-inch handheld hole punch instead of running all of these panels through my die cutting machine, but 4 layers of heavyweight cardstock turned out to be a little too much for it. Luckily, it did mark the spot, so I could quickly punch a semicircle in all of them one by one. Next, we need to die cut a hole in our main panel. I eyeballed it, but later measured it, and the 3-inch circle die is 3/16 of an inch from the edge of the notch and 3/4 from the sides of the panel. Now we can grab a little brad and attach the wheel to our back panel. To cover the brad, we'll need a little snow hill. I cut mine, which is about 2.5 inches tall, with one of the dies from the stitched Slimline Snowdrifts Die-namics. I actually adhered it too high up the first time and left no space for the presents, so here I'm doing it for the second time. Like always, to save some time, I stamped, colored, die cut and fussy cut all of my elements beforehand. You can see all of the details concerning them in the YouTube description box below. Let me just mention that the snowman is from Birdie Brown's Present Time set and the cute birds from the Joyous Holidays set. Now comes the hardest part of this card, to figure out where to adhere the presents so that they seem to come out of the red bag. I die cut a little ring for this, but a 2-inch circle would be perfect. You could even punch a hole in the middle and temporarily attach it with the brad to the disc to use it as a guide. By adhering my ring to the acetate with some tape, I can slide the little presents underneath it and center them perfectly. I backed all of my cardstock with sticky adhesive before cutting it, so now I just need to get rid of the release paper before adhering the tiny elements. I went a little overboard and made enough for at least 2 cards, but you will actually only need to cover 3/4 of the wheel. Once we're done, we can add a layer of foam tape around it, without interfering in the rotation, of course. And before we move on, now would be a good time to stamp an arrow or some kind of instruction on our wheel, so that the recipient of the card knows what to do with it. I added a sliver of tape to it first to know how much space was available. I chose the thicker arrow from the Interactive Labels stamp set as well as some STAX ink for this. And since I didn't want the disc to move, besides the 2 magnets, I also used tape to keep it in place. Okay, let me show you my prototype for a second. I used larger circle dies for it, and therefore I didn't need to tilt the snowman, but on the other hand you can see some of the larger elements passing between its arm and head. I also wanted today's card to fit an A6 envelope, and it has been a while since I made a square card. Okay, let's get back to work and adhere the main panel to the secondary panel and then to the card base. For the latter, you will only need double-sided tape, not foam tape. I like to use a lot of it so that my panel won't budge, and if you're like me, just avoid the center where the brad is. Here I'm figuring out the final placement of the snowman, and once I'm happy with it, I use a piece of tape to keep it in place while I get some foam tape. Initially, I'm adding one piece under the lower part of the snowman and another piece behind his bag. Sorry for going out of frame, I needed to get really close to see what I was doing so that the tape wouldn't interfere with the mechanism. I decided that I had enough room for another little present on the disc and for another piece of foam behind the snowman. To finish the card, I added that little banner of red hot cardstock, the birds, and some beautiful heat embossed snowflakes. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave a big thumbs up, and if you didn't, let me know in the comments what I can improve for next time. Until then, hasta la vista!